Welcome to Green and Red, Scrappy Politics for Scrappy People, a regular podcast on radical environmental and anti-capitalist politics, brought to you by Bob Bazanko and Scott Parkin.
Welcome to the silky smooth sounds of the Green and Red podcast. I'm your co-host Scott Parkin in Berkeley, California. Bob is off on assignment today, but I am joined today by a longtime friend and comrade of mine to talk a little bit about the mutual aid that has been going on in Western North Carolina. I'm talking with Matt, who's a longtime organizer, a resident of Western North Carolina, and works with rural organizing and resilience in Western North Carolina. Matt, welcome to the Green and Red podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. And as folks know, Hurricane Helene swept through the southeast U.S., Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. The last count, the death toll was over 230, with more casualties being found each day. Western North Carolina has been hit particularly hard. And ironically, Western North Carolina, Asheville in particular, had been cited as a climate haven. But just in the context of current events, we're also seeing Category 5 hurricane kind of bearing back down on Florida, Hurricane Milton in any moment now. And so we're living in this moment of climate disaster. And so maybe I'll just start by asking you this, Matt, what is the situation there? What are some of the impacts that you've seen on the ground where you are from Hurricane Helene?
Yes, the impacts have been really drastic and multifold. We've had historic levels of flooding. This is definitely the biggest floods to ever hit the region. And on top of that, the flooding, there was landslides, there were trees blown down, tons of trees blown down, massive power outages, and also cell service was totally gone in basically all of Western North Carolina for days, and many areas still don't have it. But we're talking about entire towns that just been wiped off the map, and water systems destroyed, electrical infrastructure destroyed, countless roads that are just impassable now. And see, over a week later, and there's just entire communities that still are having to get supplies airdropped into. There's no other way to really reach them at this moment. So it's just a unbelievable disaster. And it's hard to even fathom the scope of it. I'm in Madison County, which is north of Asheville, and we lost 2 towns from the French Broad River flooding. But there's at least 10 other counties in Western North Carolina that have had the same devastation, where literally every creek is a disaster zone. And that's not even counting also East Tennessee and upstate South Carolina also had devastating floods as well.
And I saw a lot of maps now after I guess the storm hit about 10 days ago now. Maps that were all of Western North Carolina is shut. Like 400 roads were shut. Are the roads all still? And I've also seen a lot of images of roads washed out, bridges wiped out, and things like that. Are the roadways in any way back at all?
Yeah, there are it's getting better, but just for context for folks, for a minute, there was basically you basically couldn't take any major road in to get into Asheville for a couple days. So I-40 west out of Asheville is washed out. I-40 east was closed down. I think they've got that cleared. I-26 coming in from the north, the bridges are just gone. And that's over the Tennessee border. Several parts of major interstates are pretty messed up right now. And then there's just so many state highways and county roads that are just absolutely destroyed, bridges gone, whatever. Yeah.
And I also saw stories about where people were trapped in rural areas and remote areas and on mountaintops and things like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's just where these normally calm creeks just became massive rivers and just washed away. If you're up at the back of a holler and there's only one road, but all it takes is to take out one bridge and you're stuck back there. But this is taking out more than one bridge. It's like taking out every bridge, large chunks of road. Just to give an example, a friend of mine's great aunt lived up on the Cane River in Yancey County. And we went out to deliver some supplies to that community. And she pointed to where her aunt's house used to be. And first of all, she couldn't even figure out what property it used to be because it had just so radically changed. But she pointed to the spot where it was just it's just a river now. And she said there used to be a 10-foot hill there that my aunt's house was on. So just to give you an idea of how powerful this water was.
And so the house was washed away, but also the hill was washed away?
Yeah, the hill that the house was on was washed away.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Thankfully, her aunt was evacuated by a neighbor before the water rose that high. But yeah, a lot of people did not get out in time.
And what did the evacuation look like? Was the state informing people to leave, or was it just going through word of mouth?
Yeah, there were some warnings for if you live in floodplains to get to higher ground. There was I think it was everything I saw was a voluntary evacuation. So there was no authorities going door to door, making people evacuate, and there was no assistance provided. Basically, like for my friend's aunt, it was like evacuation was a neighbor saying, come to my house, I'm on a hill. They did that, but so after the flood happened, they were still stuck back there for days.
And I'm going to guess in many rural parts of America that a lot of people live in the rural parts of Western North Carolina are like elderly, like elders over 65, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of elderly people for sure.
And those are folks are people still trapped?
I think there are still people that are trapped. My understanding, at least since there's one really hard hit river valley, that the Cane River, that we've been delivering aid to, my understanding was for that particular community, everyone at this point that wants to leave has been offered the opportunity to, but a lot of people are staying because they don't have anywhere to go, or they have farm animals that need to be cared for, that kind of thing, or they just can't imagine leaving home. But I do believe there are still people that can't get out from their communities right now.
And what is mutual aid looking like? And
yeah,
what is your group been doing?
Our group just to give some context, it took us like 3 or 4 days just to be able to make contact with each other because cell service was just out. A few people in our group had satellite internet and generators or solar panels, so a couple people were able to stay in contact that whole time, but most of us were just cut off from each other and just had no idea what was going on and really how bad the situation was beyond our own front door. Anyways, as soon as we were able to get contact with each other, we were able to get a mutual aid hub open in about 2 days and set up in Marshall. So we've been receiving donations from all over the East Coast through our existing activist networks. And so we're just using it as a place to bring in supplies and then redistribute them. And we also have a crew of skilled medics. One of the things we do normally is free firewood programs. So we have the chainsaw equipment and trucks to get out there. So we've been having people go out and clear trees and clear roads into some of these communities that have been cut off, or even just individual driveways with a couple trees down across the area where people can't get out. So we've been we've got the mutual aid hub set up, and we have regular hours right now where people can drop off donations, and then we dispatch. As requests come in, we dispatch those donations to not just our county, but surrounding counties. We've been delivering generators to fire departments 2 hours away because they know another fire department that was wiped away in the flood, and they are now the fire department for that fire department. We've been getting medicine to individual households and just medical supplies to assorted medical facilities, nursing homes, that kind of thing.
And so you've set up a hub in Madison County?
Yeah. Yes.
And is it on someone's property, or it's some community center in town?
There's a group that we work closely with, Holler Harm Reduction, that does needle exchange. They already had an office in downtown or near downtown Marshall, and we were able to initially use their space, and then their landlord had another space available next door. So we expanded into there, and that space is already beyond full with supplies. Yeah.
And are there mutual aid projects or mutual aid hubs popping up like this all around the region? I know that it's obvious that it's happened in Asheville. I've seen it like Firestorm Books and maybe other.
Yeah, it's all over. It's everything from radical activists to churches to fire departments to just random country people just making their front yard into the de facto distribution hub. again, back in Cane River, where we've been trying to help out in particular, way back in this valley, they're totally the sketchiest road you could ever imagine right now. You drive back 4 or 5 miles on this totally destroyed road. And then to get over to this one community, you have to drive through the river to get there. And you get back there, and the front porch of this flooded home is basically a mutual aid hub, so to speak, there where they're gathering supplies and getting out to the 40 or 50 households that are on that side of the river.
And so, like I said in the intro, is that Asheville in West North Carolina was listed as a climate haven.
Yeah.
And what does being prepared look like in a moment like this, particularly since there was this sort of, whatever you want to call it, propaganda or whatever, or like missed that it was
Right.
a safer place from climate related disaster?
Yeah, I think it definitely got a lot of us off guard. People were ill prepared. I do think in part it was genuinely that this is the largest flooding event ever in recorded history for the area. So there's no way you can prepare for something that's not happened before to some degree. But I think I would say ways to be better prepared would be like have a good store of water on hand, have alternative ways of communicating with each other, whether that's the satellite internet has been like invaluable. And I hate to give money to the fascist that runs a lot of it. There are other forms of satellite internet too. I would say for people to have a pre-existing meetup time in place if a disaster is about to hit, so that if communications are down, you have people know like where to go to find each other is like huge. Having, generators and extra gasoline on hand. Because that was another thing is that seems like gas deliveries are getting back to normal, but initially we were limited in like how much help we could provide just due to the fact that we couldn't get gas to fill vehicles. And especially in rural areas, you're having to drive a lot further to get to people. So it is fuel intensive in that regard.
What does the state or the government, say state in quotes, but what does the
Right.
state response look like?
It's varied. I think local governments have been like very local, small town governments have been very responsive and fairly effective with the resources they have from what I've seen. State government and volunteer fire departments and search and rescue and stuff like the local search and rescue has been like from day one out there doing stuff. And then slowly outside agencies are coming in, and the road crews and stuff like that have been active. Just in the past day or two, we've been seeing more and more military and National Guard show up. But yeah, it's really, you hear the stories from previous disasters, but really just seeing how ineffective the low gears of bureaucratic organizations are in getting supplies where they're needed quickly is just, abundantly clear right now.
So Biden maybe activated 500 federal military to come in and support the North Carolina National Guard. As they also were, I'm most familiar with this situation in post-Katrina New Orleans, but where the mutual aid groups were at odds with police, National Guard, military. Has there been any sort of conflict like that, or any mutual aid groups at odds with state forces?
I'm not aware of any, there's lots of rumors flying about, but I've not heard of any substantiated claims where there was like really direct stuff. The things I've heard is people not be able to get up certain roads because there's someone like the National Guard or something like that closing off, but also very likely you just can't get up that road either, even if you wanted to. We heard about some tractors, trailers full of supplies getting rerouted to like the Asheville airport and being told that the police would take them and airdrop them. But that also sounded like is maybe a case of just the tractor trailer couldn't physically travel that road. So now, and I'll say in my direct experience, every time I've tried getting up a road where there was National Guard or a cop or anything, I just told them what I was doing and they just waved me right through.
The last question is probably more around some political stuff, which is around disaster capitalism, shock doctrine, and disasters are out for community building. It's also an opportunity for exploitation by power holders, you should say. We saw that in Katrina. We've seen that in lots of situations. Have you seen anything like that begin to play out yet in North Carolina?
I haven't seen anything like that play out as of yet, beyond that there are like opportunistic disaster response companies coming in and be like, give us lots of money and we'll clean this up for you, kind of thing. But the long-term disaster capitalism, real estate vultures situation, I think we are very concerned about. For folks who have not spent time in Southern Appalachia, there is a really unique culture here of just mountain people that are really have close ties to the land and are generations deep. And they don't have a lot of folk, they might have property, but they don't have much money. And the reason they have a home that in a land to live on is that it was passed down through the family. And I think we're in a situation where places where houses were just wiped away or can't be fixed, or it's going to cost too much to fix, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure for people to sell. And already real estate prices were going through the roof here. So I think there's a real danger of really just a massive gentrification of our rural communities where families that are generations deep are going to be forced out. And what's going to be replaced is not affordable housing. It's going to be Airbnbs and second homes for wealthy out-of-towners.
I think that it's gonna play out in a lot of places. It seems like it happens a lot. I live here in California, where the climate disaster that happens here in Northern California is a lot of wildfires, and like lots of things are destroyed, but what's going back up are second homes for the wealthy and condos and things like that. And sometimes they were second homes that got burnt down as well. There's fires, but it's where also there's some of these rural areas in California are much different than rural areas in North Carolina. And so it's like people living in trailers and people who are like, have gotten some of the money, whether it's inheritance or whatever, or have land passed down from them, are like losing it or getting priced out.
Definitely.
Anyway.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear from people that dealt with this post-Katrina or other disasters about effective ways of fighting that post-disaster gentrification and disaster capitalism, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe the last thing is actually just tell us where we can find out more about rural organizing and resilience.
Yeah, you can look us up. We're on Instagram and Facebook. Just search our name, Rural Organizing and Resilience. We've got a website, ruralorganizing.wordpress.com. And you can do PayPal donations to us at ruralorganizingandresilience@gmail.com.
And we'll put all of it in the show notes as well. Great. Folks, we've been talking with Matt, resident of Western North Carolina, working with rural organizing and resilience. Matt, thanks for joining me today. Folks, if you like what you hear, and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to this on the many audio platforms, give us a rate and review. And then if you really like us, go to greaterredpodcast.org and hit that support button or become a patron at patreon.com/. Matt, it's been great talking to you today. And hopefully we can have some follow-up with you sometime soon to see how things are going.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Everyone else out there, make trouble and misbehave, and we'll talk to you again soon.